Okay, we are recording. Hello, podcast world. I am trying, I should have done this settings. Let's see. Trying to make sure. Oh, okay. Output device, input device. I gotta mess with this for a sec. Hang on. Okay, there we go. Input device. Okay, I think that's right. So, hello guys. Hello podcast world. I was just I'm doing this on video as well. So I was just talking to Patreon because the video goes for now just on Patreon. And they always get a little bit of an extended version. And I was saying that today I guess today will be a bonus episode because I have an episode that takes place around Thanksgiving, but it does not take place in the Southwest. And I planned to do this yesterday, but I got in a terrible mood yesterday and then just didn't do it. That's the truth. Without getting into too much detail about it, I just got very, I had a text message exchange that I didn't love. And I was just feeling kind of like down about things. Sometimes when I get like one negative thing, I'm working on it, but I'm not great at it. I let it kind of, like I had a text exchange with Jenna yesterday and didn't love it. And rather than just letting it be that and letting that be like, didn't love that, that makes me upset, put me kind of in a bad mood. Let me sit in that bad mood for a few minutes and then move on. I did not do that. I instead let it kind of overshadow the whole rest of my afternoon and evening. And then I really started just, what's the word? Catastrophizing maybe? I mean, nothing was a catastrophe, but I was making a bigger deal out of things. And I was like, I applied that negative mentality that I had from this text exchange to everything. Like, you know, why is nobody trying to be as good of a friend? Why does nobody, reach out and see how I'm? Anyways, it was very like self-righteous and not self-righteous, it was self-involved. I was having a little sad moment. And then I kind of even applied that to like some career stuff. And I just was feeling very much in my like, oh, poor me for this and poor me for that. I did a workout video to try and get myself out of the bad mood. Didn't help. I definitely directed a lot of my frustration, anger at Mark for he didn't do anything wrong. Definitely took it out on him. That didn't make me feel better at all. I took the dogs on a night walk. Didn't really help. And so finally at 8:00, I was like, well, fuck this afternoon. And I got in bed. I went to sleep and I slept well and woke up today and said like, nope. We're starting over. We're going to have a good day. And I called Mark. I apologized last night for kind of taking out emotions on him that had nothing to do with him. But I called him this morning. I apologized again because I didn't want him to start off his day like badly. And took the dogs on a morning walk and then had a recording. I had planned with Jim and like the whole team. So the team there's 5 of us total, including myself and Jim. I had asked everyone, let's do a Thanksgiving special episode that we'll put out next week, the week of Thanksgiving. And I want everyone to, I sent them like a loose outline. I came up with a couple games. We didn't have time to get to any of the games actually. I was kind of bummed because I think they'll be fun. I'm going to maybe play them with Mark on like a bonus episode. We'll put that out next week. But one of the things I asked everyone to find a gratitude or Thanksgiving related video from social media that like struck them, that they liked. And so we started that. So we went around, we all said what we were thankful for. We had a big conversation about how it's annoying to do that. Jim was like, he's like, you told me about this episode a couple of weeks ago and I've just been in my head, like, what am I going to say? I've been dreading it. Like, I feel like it's so much pressure. It's kind of like being in school when it's like, show and tell day or something like that. Like you're put on the spot and do you like say something funny? Do you say something heartfelt? And we all talked about how we completely agree. And I was like, man, maybe we shouldn't say what we're thankful for, because we all don't want to, but we did. And I didn't have an answer. I hadn't really even thought about it. I mean, I'm grateful that I wake up each day. I'm grateful that I'm relatively healthy, that my family's healthy, that I have a home and dogs and food and like all the things. But I didn't want to say all of that. So I said I'm grateful for change, because when I look back at last year around this time to this year, I was in a very different place emotionally, mentally. I didn't know it at the time, but I was about to be broken up with and go through a very difficult few months. And a lot has changed since then in my romantic life, my emotional, my mental, personal, career, everything, so in big ways and small ways. And change is hard, but I'm grateful to have the ability to change and to recognize things changing around me and to appreciate those. So that was mine. And Jim was everybody had, good videos and good things that they were grateful for and thankful for. But Jim took the time to like talk to each of us individually and share like what he was grateful for about us over the past year. And it was really kind and really heartfelt, and like really, it's always nice to hear that someone appreciates you or is thankful for you. And then on top of that, to hear like the reasons why. It's a nice thing. I can't imagine anybody not liking that. So, and we don't have like weekly team meetings. We sometimes do, but generally we don't. We've tried, but we kind of all connect as needed, I think. And so and we're all in different parts of the country. And so we're a team, but we all also work independently a lot. And so there's not often times when we're all together, certainly not on video. I never get on video, but I did get on video for this. And there's no like filter. We record on StreamYard, which I really like actually, but they're always updating it and changing it because it's a newer type. It's like Zoom, but it's not, it's different. It's called StreamYard. And so they used to have what Zoom has, which is like smooth my appearance or touch up my appearance, which essentially it gets rid of the bags under my eyes and a couple wrinkles. It makes a difference to me. And so last time I was on StreamYard, it had that. And today, suddenly that feature was gone. And I was mortified. Makes a big difference, but it was fine. And it was exactly what I needed. After kind of feeling sorry for myself, which was stupid, last night and yesterday afternoon, and like just being in I was in a shitty mood. Like I was just, everything felt negative. When one thing goes negative, sometimes I allow it to make everything negative. I know I already said that, but I'd like to reiterate it. And so after feeling that way all last night, it was really exactly what I needed. And I didn't think I would enjoy it as much as I did. I had a lot of fun. So that was really nice. I had a great conversation with Brandon after that. He just got some great news for one of his projects, and he has some things that he might need help with from me. And I love feeling needed and being busy. So that's happy. Then I went and walked Jinx, and I don't know. Basically all of this is just to say that I'm always amazed by, and maybe this is just me. I don't know. Maybe I need to look into this a little bit for myself, but I'm always amazed by like just how things can look so differently from one day to the next. And yesterday, afternoon, evening, everything looked negative to me. And I couldn't pull myself out of this very negative mindset where nothing is good. There's no positive anything. And I let myself just kind of like stew in that to today when like nothing much has changed. I mean, really nothing has changed since yesterday, except for the fact that I woke up this morning and was like, nope, I'm going to have a good day. And I said it out loud to myself. I said it to the dogs on our walk. Today's going to be a good day. We're going to make it a good day. And it's noon right now, and it has been. And I don't know. I don't want to be too like, it's so cheesy. It's not like one of those cheesy motivational videos. Like, just wake up and tell yourself you're going to have a good day. I understand that doesn't always work. But when it does, it's nice. And it was a good reminder to me. And so now I'm passing it on to you that if everything looks really shitty and bad today, it's just today, and it will pass and perhaps be better tomorrow. So there's my quasi-motivational speech for you. And yeah, so I have an episode today. I guess we're going to call it a bonus episode because it does not take place in the Southwest. What I'm trying to do is on Mondays do mini crime stories and it doesn't matter where they take place in the world. And then Tuesdays do our regular stories that take place in the Southwest. That's not happening this week. I don't think it happened last week. So we're going to do the bonus today. I have a crime story that does take place in the Southwest that someone on Patreon suggested, and I'm super excited about it. So probably going to do that one tomorrow. Any other housekeeping stuff? I know that if Mary from Montana is listening, she's hoping that I'm just getting right to the podcast, but she's probably not listening anymore. Oh, you know what? I got a really nice voicemail from Jay. I don't have it in front of me, so I hope I'm correct in remembering that. I believe I am. And maybe I'll play it. I think he said that I'm allowed to play his messages. I have a couple I haven't listened to, actually. Oh. Okay. Let's see if do I put on speakerphone? Oh. Okay. Let's start over. I think he got cut off.
The way you went through his early life and everything was awesome. Great job. I loved it. I think your show is awesome. Like, I like the sound of your voice. I like the way you talk. As far as Mary from Montana, I mean, if she's been listening for a year, she knows the drill. She knows what's going on. It just sounded like somebody that just felt like the need to send somebody some feedback they didn't really ask for. So anyways, keep doing what you're doing. You're awesome. And, just know that there's at least a couple thousand people out there that love your show and love the way you do it. Have a great weekend. Take care.
So sweet. I think the beginning of your message, Jay, got cut off, but thank you so much. You're awesome. I really do appreciate encouragement like that. I appreciate hearing from you guys no matter what you have to say. Even Mary from Montana, the fact that anyone is taking any time out of their day to reach out to me is like so crazy and wonderful. And sorry, I'm putting my phone on silent there. So thank you, Jay. That was so nice. And I also noticed when I just opened Google Voice that there are a couple other messages. So I'm going to listen to those before I actually play them on the podcast. But thank you. I really do appreciate the encouragement because, as I continue to say, I don't really know what I'm doing here. I'm just kind of doing what feels right, which may be selfish because I'm more taking into consideration what feels right to me than what all of you want. But yeah, but it's always nice to hear that. So I'm glad you liked I think you were talking about the most recent episode, because that message was from Friday, I believe. Oh, here comes the cat. And hopefully you guys will like this one today. I was on a roll with Instagram, guys. I'm responding, fallen off a little bit this week. Sometimes on the weekend, I forget, and this is a good thing. I recommend it to anyone. Sometimes on the weekend, I forget that I have a phone, that I have a podcast, that I have social media. Like, I just completely, and I don't know why some weekends I can do it more than others. We didn't do anything like fantastical this weekend. We did not go to Costco, so don't worry, Mary from Montana. I will not be talking about my Costco trip. But yeah, I don't know what we did. We didn't do anything. Oh, I went to Mark's like ribbon cutting at Camp Cooper, which was cool. It was really cool. I was really proud of him. He did such a great job. And Sunday, I literally can't remember. I think we did. I don't think we really did anything. Which is the whole point. Like, nothing like spectacular. I think I got in bed at 8:00 on Friday night. Nothing like out of the ordinary. We didn't like do anything crazy or super fun or new or exciting. But sometimes it's really nice to just like put my phone down on the, kitchen counter and kind of not pick it up. Like, we went Saturday evening to the grocery store or something. I was like, I didn't bring my phone. Why? I don't know. There's something very refreshing about it. But then, like, when it comes to on Monday, it's even harder to kind of get my head back into the game of life. So, anyways, all that is to say that I'm sure there are messages that I need to respond to, and emails and Instagram DMs, and I haven't responded to them. And so I don't have anything to share on that front. What did I have written down here to share? Nope. Nothing. So we're just going to jump right into the story. I feel like, we're going to jump right into the story. I've been recording for 17 minutes, guys. So I guess we're not jumping right into the story, but we're jumping into it. So our story today takes place. Well, let me just see what time it actually is. Yeah, 18 minutes. I'm going to write that down so I can put in the show notes so that people can skip to minute 18. Okay. So our story today takes place in Colts Neck, New Jersey. It's a township in Monmouth County, New Jersey. It's roughly 50 miles south of New York City and 80 miles north of Philadelphia, making it an ideal suburban location for commuters to both cities. In 2020, there was approximately 10,000 residents in Colts Neck, New Jersey. It's about 31 square miles, rolling hills, open spaces, very picturesque, kind of slightly rural suburban vibe. It is very well known for horse farms and orchards. There's a lot of horses and horseback riding. It's a pretty affluent. It's one of the wealthiest towns in New Jersey, has a lot of horse property. It is part of New Jersey's horse country. I guess there's part of New Jersey is actually referred to as horse country, has many horse farms and riding trails, known for apple orchards and pumpkin patches. Oh yeah, there's a lot of, a handful of celebrities, I guess, that live there. Bruce Springsteen, and I had something else written down here. Bruce Springsteen has a home there, as well as David Bryan, who plays keyboard in the band Bon Jovi, and Jon Stewart and his wife run an animal sanctuary here. I did not know that they ran an animal sanctuary at all, and that is my dream, as you know, and I love that. So I have to look into that for sure. I'm going to write that down. Jon Stewart. This is podcasting in real time, guys. Animal sanctuary. Okay. The median household income is $162,000, and that was in 2016. That's a lot. So it's a very wealthy neighborhood. And our story today is going to focus on two brothers named Keith and Paul Caneiro. I no idea if that's how you actually say their last name, Caneiro, but that's how I'm going to say it. So they grew up in Brooklyn. They're about 18 months apart. They were very close their whole lives. They do have another sibling named Corey. He is younger than both of them. I think Paul is the older one, 18 months older than Keith. So they grew up in Brooklyn, very close. They eventually both married women from Staten Island, and then they both moved to suburban New Jersey, with Keith living in Colts Neck and Paul living in another suburb about 20 minutes away. So Keith ended up marrying a woman named Jennifer. They had 2 children together, Jesse, a little boy who was 11, and Sophia was 8 at the time of our story, of course. They weren't born at the age 11 and 8. Jennifer was a member of the PTO. She loved participating in the kids' school events, activities, sports, all those things. She also loved throwing holiday parties. Paul, the other brother, married Susan and had 2 daughters. They were older. I don't know their exact ages, but I do know that they were referred to as adults at the time of our story. But I don't know how adult they were. Both brothers, I believe, were best men for each other at each other's weddings. And eventually they grew to become business partners as well. So Keith showed an early interest in computers. When he was in high school, he actually got a job as a janitor. I read somewhere that it was an unpaid job even at a computer store, because he just wanted to be near the technology equipment and computers. And he kind of ran with that interest and later became a salesman, I believe, at that computer store. And then he ended up starting a computer consulting firm, and his brother was his first hire. It sounds like they kind of started it together, but it was more Keith's thing, and then he brought Paul on. By 2001, they had 26 employees and some major clients, including Citibank, Nike, and Prudential. So the company it had a different name to begin with, a combination of their middle names. Unfortunately, I don't know why I don't have that written down here, but I don't. They changed the name once it started growing and they got those big clients, Citibank, Nike. They changed the name to Square One. And this is really cool. Square One, their company, designed and installed a new computer network, workstations, and a sales system for an immigration history center at Ellis Island. It allowed visitors to research the history of family members who arrived in the United States through the famed point of entry. I mean, I think that's fascinating. And what a cool thing to create and develop and allow other people to learn about their family history like that. I mean, really amazing. So the company was very successful. They also started somewhere along the way a pest control company. So apparently Keith really liked to be busy. He always wanted to have his hands in several different things. He didn't ever want to kind of become stagnant. So at some point they had also started a pest control company, and their younger brother, Corey, did kind of administrative stuff for that company. And over time it became where Paul was more involved at the pest company and Keith was more involved at the technology company. the technology company, it was a 90-10 split. So Keith owned 90% of it. Paul owned 10% of it. I think at the pest control company, it was 50-50. But they were both making well over $200,000 a year. Very successful. Keith, perhaps slightly more successful. If you're going to really like compare, Keith had a 57. And look, I don't think that your home size or cost determines your success. But if we're going to go on kind of monetary and things, if we're going to go based on things, sorry, I had to think about that. And that was not the word I was looking for. But Keith's home was almost 6,000 square feet. It was about $1.5 million situated on 9 acres of land. Paul, who lived again about 20 minutes away in a very nice nearby suburb, he wasn't like living in a shack himself. His house was about $500,000, had a beautiful in-ground swimming pool, had several Porsches. He really liked Porsches. So he had several Porsches always parked in the driveway. One of Paul's neighbors, he wouldn't share his name with the press. He was interviewed by the press, but he wanted to remain anonymous. He said that Paul regularly boasted about money. He was often bragging about all of his belongings and things and his Porsches. And Keith apparently was not like that. So initially, when I was researching this and learning about them, I was like, wow, so nice. I mean, that sounds like a lovely life. They grew up together. They own businesses together. They're best friends. Their families are close. They live 20 minutes away. Like, that sounds like a dream situation. I love that. I realize that Jenna and I, neither of us have children, but we live 3 minutes away from each other. And, up until recently, we're very, very close, and hopefully we'll be again. And like, it's a similar situation. I love it. Like our significant others are best friends, and it's a nice situation. But once I started digging a little bit deeper, I kind of got the idea that maybe it wasn't as happy as it seemed. That maybe Keith was happy and was thriving, but Paul wasn't quite as happy and wasn't thriving quite as much. So about 5 years prior to when our story takes place, Paul had been in a horrible car accident that left him completely immobilized for a period of time. He'd had multiple surgeries. He was on painkillers for a very long time. He had pretty bad injuries to his back, his legs, and his knees. One of the brothers, a friend of both of the brothers, said, quote, he was never the same person after he got into that accident. It was bad. It was bad for a very long time. And Keith, on the other hand, so again, five years, Paul spent many years. He was not immobilized at this point. At the time that our story takes place, he could walk, he was fine, but he still had pain. He still had issues from the car accident. As his friend said, he was never the same person. Keith, on the other hand, in recent years had been really working on himself. He'd earned a graduate degree through Columbia University. He started working out with a trainer. He'd lost a bunch of weight, was getting in great shape. His trainer said, quote, he was a super busy guy. He was definitely not one to let moss gather. He was always moving. I like that, to let moss gather. And that's kind of the sentiment I shared a few minutes ago, that he liked to have his hand in many different things. He was constantly kind of on the go. His family, Keith's family, his wife and their 2 kids regularly spent time in Greece because his wife, Jennifer, that's where her father grew up, and that's where Keith and Jennifer hope to retire eventually. Jennifer and Keith worked out together. Also, so did Paul's wife and daughters. They also worked out with everyone at this Aspire Fitness gym. But Paul couldn't work out with his family and wife and daughters and brother because of his mobility issues. And when everyone, including his wife and daughters, went to Greece, because Jennifer and Keith had a house there, Paul, for a period of time, wasn't able to go with because of his mobility issues. He couldn't travel on the plane that long. He couldn't do I guess whatever was needed to be done to travel to the small island in Greece that they would travel to. He couldn't go. So he was left out not only of the kind of working out together as families and also traveling as families. Beyond that, there was some chatter that Susan and Paul were having some marriage problems. He had actually moved out of their home for about 6 months. I don't have an exact timeline of that, but sometime in the past year or two, prior to this story. And our story, should have said this at the top, takes place in 2018. So in a year or two prior to 2018, Paul and Susan were having problems. Paul moved out for about 6 months. He had since moved back into their home, but they still slept in separate bedrooms. So things were not totally back to all good and happy. So we're going to start our story. Takes place in 2018. Let's see. In 2018, Thanksgiving. Oh, they don't have it on my calendar. I was trying to see, is Thanksgiving Thursday the 29th in 2018 or Thursday the 22nd? I don't know. It does not have it on my calendar. But so this is either the week of or the week before Thanksgiving. So that the week started off on Monday, November 19th. Paul arrived at EcoStar Pest Management around 10 a.m., which is, usually what he did. He usually went into the office. Keith, on the other hand, worked often from home, working with Square One, the computer software technology company. But like I said, Paul was more involved with the pest management, so he often went into the office. He was generally there most days of the week, as he was this Monday. Went in around 10 a.m., left around 3 p.m., and a coworker said he spent much of the day with his nose in his iPad. I guess that's what he usually did. The coworker said, I didn't notice anything out of the ordinary. On Tuesday, November 20th, there were 2 fires on this day in 2 separate but very close New Jersey suburbs. One of these fires resulted in several horrific fatalities, and the other one, luckily, had no deaths or really even injuries. So at 5 a.m. on Tuesday, police received a report of a fire burning at 27 Tilton Drive in Ocean Township. Ocean Township was the suburb where Paul lived. Later that day, around 12:30, although the fire had been burning for a while, no one knew until about 12:30 that in Colts Neck at 15 Willowbrook Road, another fire had begun. So there's a fire going on early in the morning in Ocean Township, and then another fire that no one was alerted to until around 12:30 p.m. that day in Colts Neck. So what do these fires have in common? If you couldn't guess, because I kind of fumbled that whole intro there. I was hoping to make that very suspenseful, and I can't even say the word suspenseful without tripping over it, so it didn't happen. But these 2 fires have this in common. Each of them occurred at one of the brothers' homes. One was at Paul's and one was at Keith's. At Paul's home in Ocean Township, the fire that police were alerted to around 5 a.m., his wife, Susan, and 2 grown daughters were home at the time, but no injuries occurred. And so I have I don't know if this is a police report. At the top, it says State of New Jersey versus Paul Caneiro. So it's a very detailed report, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. but I want to read a little bit of it. So on Tuesday, November 20th at approximately 5:01 a.m., Ocean Township Police responded to 27 Tilton Drive to a report of smoke inside a residence. Upon arrival, emergency personnel observed fire activity located to the rear of the residence. A small fire was also observed on the lower portion of a garage door attached to the residence. The residence was determined to be occupied by the homeowners, Paul and Susan, and their 2 adult daughters. Once the police got there, the occupants of the home actually had already left the home. So they were in one of Paul's Porsches, parked in front of the residence. They evacuated the adjacent homes just for safety purposes. There were no injuries reported at all. So a red-colored gasoline gas can was located on the driveway in close proximity to a white-colored Porsche Macan. The aforementioned vehicle had brown staining on the hood, indicative of likely spot pour burn patterns. A charred rubber glove was located on the ground in front of the Porsche and the garage door that was burned. They also located a storage shed on the back of the property. It was determined to have a rear door, which was unlocked. Inside the shed were 3 gasoline cans. The first 2 gasoline cans were in line with a space separating them from the 3rd can, indicating that there was a 4th can that had been there and was removed. The gasoline can located on the driveway is believed to be that missing can. The emergency personnel determined that there were numerous exterior video surveillance cameras. Paul later, at a later date, provided written consent that they could search his DVR system and review the recordings, but he said he couldn't remember if he turned off the video recording system the previous day because he thought it was causing his Wi-Fi to run slow. So he thought he maybe had turned it off. So once they got into the DVR systems, they reviewed it, and it revealed that the last activity recorded was on November 20th at 1:29 a.m. One of the cameras showed Paul walking into the garage, turning on the light, and then walking towards the DVR system, which is stored in the garage, and the DVR stops recording at 1:30 a.m. Although the recordings could be viewed via mobile application, the video cameras were determined to be hardwired and not internet-based. So they weren't even based on the Wi-Fi, which kind of makes it seem suspicious that he said he turned them off because he thought they were making his Wi-Fi run slow. They also located 2 butane lighters inside the home. So the fire marshal's office responded to the scene to help determine if there were 2 areas where the fires originated. And there were. And a portable gas detector yielded positive findings of unknown combustible gases. So members of the investigative team interviewed Paul's wife. Susan told them, "We've been married since 1992. We do sleep in separate bedrooms because we've been having marriage difficulties." She explained that she was alerted to the fire because the fire alarm went off within the home. So she got her daughters, and Paul, they all got out of their home. Paul removed the Porsche from the garage and drove it to the street where the family remained until the police arrived. Susan said she thought that she assumed the video surveillance cameras were operational at the time of the fire. She said, but she couldn't be sure because Paul's in charge of those. She had no idea why he would have turned off the cameras. She didn't think that he ever turned off the cameras. She said there's also a Ring doorbell at the front of the home. They did review those recordings and revealed that the last time the Ring camera caught anything was on November 15th. So, okay, sorry. So, the investigative team traveled to another neighbor's house. So 30 Tilton Drive. Paul lived at 27 Tilton Drive. So they reviewed video surveillance from their home to see if it had caught anything. And these recordings revealed that on November 20th at 2:07 a.m. So at this point, remember, Paul's already turned off his surveillance cameras. They saw a white Porsche driving past the residence towards Green Grove Road. And then that same vehicle returned to the residence, to Paul's residence at 4:08 a.m. Okay, just keep that on mind. And the end of this report says, it should also be noted that at approximately 12:33 p.m. on November 20th, Colts Neck police were dispatched to a fire at 15 Willowbrook Road. So, unfortunately, at this fire, the outcome was not quite so positive. The police and emergency personnel, when they were dispatched to this fire, found 4 deceased at the home. The bodies of Jennifer Caneiro and their 2 children were found inside the home, and Keith Caneiro's body was found outside the home with gunshot wounds. The children's bodies were burned so badly that they could not immediately be identified. And at this moment, on the 20th, officials released, some type of statement saying that they were investigating to determine if the fires were connected in any way. So, on Wednesday, November 21st, and I know that I kind of glossed over that was a big part of this, but we're going to talk a lot more about the deaths of Keith, his wife, and his kids in just a moment. So on Wednesday, November 21st, the day after the fires, Paul was arrested and charged with setting his own home on fire the same day that his brother's family was found dead. Authorities allege that in the early morning hours of Tuesday, November 20th, Paul used gasoline to light his home on fire with his wife and 2 daughters inside. An affidavit spelled out the evidence on which police charged Paul with torching his home. And that's all the evidence that was in that report that I just read you. Burn marks on his white Porsche, a charred rubber glove near the car, the scorched garage door, plus the gas cans and the digital recorder that Paul stopped, at 1:30 a.m. When asked, the Monmouth County prosecutor, Christopher Gramacioni, yeah, we'll go with it, Gramacioni, said that he could not confirm or deny whether Paul was under suspicion in the fire at his brother's house. They did determine that Keith and his family were murdered prior to the home being set on fire, but at this point on Wednesday, November 21st, they were not releasing much information. Obviously, it had not even been a full day since they had found Keith and his entire family murdered, so there was not a lot of information going out yet. But on Wednesday, more than 150 people gathered outside Colts Neck Township Town Hall for a mostly silent vigil where the mayor, who was also a friend of Keith's and his family's, spoke. It was apparently very emotional. So the investigation begins, including autopsies on all 4 of the deceased. So Keith's body was found on his front lawn. An autopsy revealed that he was shot 5 times, including 4 times in the head. Jennifer, his wife, died from a gunshot wound to the head and stab wounds to her torso. Jesse, Keith and Jennifer's son, who was 11 years old, his death was caused by stab wounds, and smoke inhalation was seen as a contributing factor. Sophia suffered she was 8, suffered multiple stab wounds. Her death was attributed to sharp force injuries and smoke inhalation. And I do have more information about these, again, that we'll continue to get to, but Sophia's death was absolutely the worst. the autopsy determined that she survived the stab wounds for a very long period of time, and experienced significant pain and suffering before she passed away, which is horrifying to think about. To learn just a little bit more about Keith and his family, their obituaries came out, and that's where I did find a good amount of information about them. Keith's obituary said Keith earned his undergraduate and master's degree from Columbia. He was the CEO of Square One. He loved spending time with his family and his dog Sydney in Greece and in New Jersey. He was an altruistic person who would help everyone and anyone who needed his assistance. He enjoyed working out at Aspire Gym. He was an avid reader, often reading 3 or 4 books a week. And he was a passionate sports fan, a loving husband and father. Sophia, she was a member of the Colts Neck Girl Scouts. She participated in the Colts Neck recreation programs. She loved taking ninja classes. Sophia enjoyed baking with her mom and her nanny, Claudia. She loved ice skating, gymnastics, and the New York Yankees. She was a vibrant, enthusiastic, and precocious girl who enjoyed the arts and had positive energy that was contagious. Jesse, he excelled in history, especially World War I and World War II, and he could have a conversation with anyone about current world events. He enjoyed technology and learning about all the functions of the latest computers, phones, and watches. He loved to play the video game Fortnite, and he loved building amazing structures with Legos. He also participated in the Colts Neck recreation sports programs and loved traveling to Greece with his family. All 4 were cremated. And this is directly from a news article. They were murdered together and now they'll rest in peace together. They were cremated and all 4 of their remains were put in a single urn. And that was on display at their funeral. So, in this investigation, police are obviously digging into not only Keith and Jennifer's life when they were alive, but also Keith's relationship with Paul, their businesses, everything. And they actually were able to kind of gain a lot of information from Jennifer's father, I believe. So Keith's father-in-law, because in April 2018, Jennifer told her family that Keith had found out Paul was stealing money from the trusts that Jennifer and Keith had set up for their kids. So they had set up trust funds for Jesse and Sophia, and somehow they found out that Paul was stealing money. Apparently, Paul had been appointed trustee of the children's college accounts. I'm not totally sure why you would do that, but he was, and that's how he had access to it. So apparently Paul stopped that spring of 2018. Paul had stopped paying for his daughter Marissa's college tuition and asked Keith for help, and Keith ended up paying for it. But even still, Paul continued to allegedly divert money from Jesse and Sophia's college funds to his own children's college funds. 3 days before these murders occurred, Keith had told a family member that Paul had taken $90,000 from his children's college funds and diverted them to his own kids' college funds. Keith was also expressing frustration that Paul was not contributing equally to their joint businesses and that Paul would excessively spend money from the business accounts. And apparently, again, it's difficult to confirm any of this because Keith was no longer alive at this point, but apparently Keith had planned to cut off Paul's annual salary of $225,000 a year until he got his act together. So, based on the video surveillance footage from neighbors near Paul's house and piecing together a timeline, the state prosecutor believed that Paul was not only responsible for the fire at his house, but that he was also responsible for the murders and fire at his brother's house. And that this was all driven by, financially driven. So this is what investigators believe really happened. And then based on this, on November 29th, it was announced that Paul Caneiro was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder. Paul's defense attorneys responded to this and said he will be completely vindicated once this case is resolved. 2 days later, Paul appeared in a Monmouth County courtroom for the first time wearing a green jumpsuit, and his charges were read out against him. He, as well as his attorneys, continued to repeatedly affirm his innocence. They stated, Paul's family means more to him than anything else in the world. There's absolutely no reason in the world for Paul to have committed the crimes that he is alleged to have committed. And then on the following Monday, Paul's lawyers announced that after a lot of debate and discussion within their law firm, they would have to stop representing Paul due to conflicts of interest. Apparently, they discovered 2 separate conflicts of interest after reviewing the case evidence. And both the trial judge and the prosecutor's office agreed that these conflicts of interest made it impossible for them to continue representing him. Of course, the attorney said that, we can't disclose the specifics of these conflicts without jeopardizing Paul's ability to get a fair trial. So at the next court appearance at his arraignment, Paul was represented by Deputy Assistant Public Defender Michael Wick. His defense attorneys expressed regret over the decision, but they did believe that Paul was entitled to his day in court, which I think is interesting because they didn't say we believe that he's innocent and that will be proven on his day in court. They just said we believe that he's entitled to his day in court. Now, about 3 months after this, authorities finally released a full text document of everything that they were charging Paul with and all the evidence that they had against him. So apparently Keith had sent an email to 2 business associates telling them that funds were missing from their business. He had also mentioned in this email that he's going to stop paying Paul's wife until the missing money was found. So because Paul was still considered, I guess, disabled from his car accident, and when the car accident happened, the Square One business, the 10% ownership that Paul had, all those payments would go to Paul's wife. So in this email, Keith had said, I'm going to stop paying his wife, stop paying her, Susan, until the missing money is found. Apparently Keith also, in these emails, the investigators found out that he was planning to sell one of the businesses. He had expressed frustration to their brother, Corey, that he was frustrated with how much money Paul was spending from their business accounts. And the night before Keith's death, around 7 p.m., he forwarded an email to his brother, Corey, discussing all of these concerns. So he sent these emails. That was a little bit of a messy way to describe that. Basically, Keith had sent emails to business associates outlining the fact that he believed Paul was stealing from him, that Paul was spending too much of the business's money, that he wasn't contributing enough, he wasn't working hard enough, and that Keith was planning to stop paying Paul and to sell one of the businesses that they own together. And so Keith forwarded any of these business emails outlining all this. He forwarded this to his brother, Corey, the night before he died. Now, it's not clear if Paul knew about these emails. There's no way to know that. I don't know how Paul would know about them, but it seems like maybe he did find out about them because only hours later, he walked into his own garage home, turned off the surveillance cameras, and then, what police believe he did was then go to his brother's house, murder everyone, set that house on fire, go back to his house and set his own house on fire. So these surveillance cameras from the neighbor not only caught, his surveillance camera, he walked up, turned it off around 1:30 a.m. And then we heard that the neighbor's surveillance camera caught him caught a white Porsche driving away from Paul Caneiro's house towards the way that he would go to get to Keith's house around 2:07 a.m. And then surveillance cameras also captured that same SUV returning around 4 a.m. So authorities allege that during that time, Paul went to his brother's house in Colts Neck, killed Keith, Jennifer, Jesse, and Sophia, and then set the home on fire. Although no one would know about this house being set on fire for many, many hours, because authorities allege that he set the fire in the basement, and it took hours for it to actually reach the rest of the house. It was a very large house. Maybe there wasn't a lot to burn in the basement. I'm not sure how a fire can start in the basement and then take actual hours, because they're alleging that he killed Keith and his family between the hours of 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. Authorities didn't show up until 12:30 p.m. about the fire. So, that's hours and hours later, but no one noticed anything. Nobody noticed any smoke. Again, I guess you're on 9 acres. There's really not a lot of neighbors nearby. But around noon, a landscaper working in the area smelled smoke coming from Keith's estate. He alerted his boss, who was a friend of the family, Boris, and Boris went over to check on the property. He discovered Keith shot to death on the front lawn, and at 12:38 p.m. he called 911 and said, "My God, there's blood here. It's a corpse," he told the dispatcher. So at this point, investigators are now that they believe that Paul is responsible for this, and there's pretty good amount of evidence, at least for the motive. At least that's how I feel. Yes, the surveillance cameras seeing him leave his home at 2 a.m., come back at 4 a.m., turn off his own video cameras, starting the fire at his own house. It's all very suspicious and weird. But at least in my mind, there isn't anything concrete saying that he killed his brother and his brother's family yet. And that's what police are looking for. So when they searched Paul's home, they came across a ton of firearms and a variety of ammunition in the basement of Paul's home. They also came across a container that had clothing in it. It had a pair of jeans and a latex glove. Both had red stains on them resembling blood. DNA testing eventually revealed that the blood on these items did belong to Sophia Caneiro. They also spoke to neighbors. A neighbor reported hearing 4 to 5 loud noises like gunshots, followed by a single shot shortly after 3 a.m. Another resident in the area called 911 to actually report those gunshots, but police were unable to figure out where they came from at the time. Investigators also found an unspent 9mm round in the clothing that they found in Paul's basement, and it was consistent with the shell casings discovered at Keith's home. Apparently, these shell casings were identified as Fiacci 9mm, bearing a very specific head stamp. And they found Fiacci 9mm ammunition in the basement of Paul's home with the same head stamp, the same letters and numbers carved into it, identifying the manufacturer and caliber. Police also recovered a 9mm Sig Sauer handgun from a backpack in one of Paul's cars, along with a firearm suppressor, so a silencer, night vision equipment, a laptop, and Paul's passport. So, The report continued, the investigators, this is all coming from the investigative report after they searched Paul's home and the autopsies and everything all collectively. So again, Keith's body was found outside, shot once in the lower back and 4 times in the head. Jesse, the 11-year-old, was found on the kitchen floor. Sophia was found on the stairwell landing between the first and second floors. And Jennifer was discovered on the stairwell between the basement and the first floor. Apparently, when firefighters entered Keith's home, an influx of oxygen caused what was a small fire at the time to escalate into a blaze that consumed much of the house. And so if you haven't kind of come to this conclusion yet, what police believed happened is that Paul went to Keith's, killed everyone, set the house on fire, went back to his house and set his own house on fire in an effort to not only confuse investigators, but to kind of get them into the mindset thinking that the whole Caneiro family is being targeted. So, but for some reason, no one chose to kill Paul's family. They just chose to kill Keith's entire family, but then set both homes on fire. I mean, it's a really poorly thought out plan here, obviously, that Paul had, but nonetheless, that was his plan. With further investigation here, police found out that Paul, although he didn't really have any kind of criminal record or anything, apparently he had at least one instance of kind of being threatening violence, I guess you could say. I think that this story personally was kind of blown out of proportion just to add to the, this came out right around the time that this all happened, obviously. And I think it just kind of adds to the, just the dramatics around it. I mean, it's a horrific story, very dramatic, very terrible. But an old coworker of Paul's, IT consultant Mark Bostrom, says that when he heard Paul's name on the news, instantly this terrifying encounter he had with him came rushing back. He said he worked on a project with Paul like 27 years ago. And when he saw the mugshot, he recognized him immediately. Mark said the two crossed paths in 1991 after Citibank came on. They had been hired to install a computer system in Citibank's Chicago office building, but apparently the project had a ton of different problems, several network outages, and there was one night where Mark was working late with Paul, and Mark walked over to Paul and cracked a joke. He said, I asked him if the not work was going to be up soon, teasing him since the network wasn't working. He called it a not work instead of a network. It's not very funny. But Mark said, quote, he was examining some blueprints and became incensed with my comment. He picked up a screwdriver off the table and said, you could have a fatal accident back here, while slowly moving the screwdriver up and down. The thinly veiled threat shook Mark, and Mark reported the incident to the local cops. Apparently, Mark felt that the message was very clear that Paul thought he could kill him and make it look like an accident. Nothing ever came of this complaint. Obviously, Mark was a little bit frightened of Paul after this, and that's really all there was to it. I mean, is it even worth mentioning? Was it even worth mentioning that? I don't know. He, one comment that he made to a coworker 27 years ago. I mean, maybe. I don't think that lets us know that he's capable of what he actually did, So when all came down to the legal matters, Paul was facing 6 counts of murder, 2 counts of arson, and 4 weapons charges, as well as theft, misapplication of entrusted property, and hindering apprehension of oneself. Again, I think either last week or the week before, we had a story where somebody had murdered I can't remember it now. You guys will remember it better than me. Murdered maybe 2 people, but he was facing 4 counts of murder, and there was a reason behind it. So Paul Paul murdered 4 people, but was facing 6 counts of murder. There's got to be some type of reasoning behind that. Is it because he killed them? Something to do with that he shot them and stabbed them, I believe. I'm going to have to look that up, guys. So he appeared in court for his arraignment, pled not guilty to all charges. Sorry, I have a lot of duplicate information here. So that was in 2019, in March 2019, he pled not guilty to the murder charges during a court appearance. He had a public defender. He didn't have defense attorneys. He just had a public defender at this point. And rather than trying to trudge through the ins and outs of our justice system, which, if you know me, you know I'm probably not going to do a great job of explaining. That was 2019. He still hasn't gone to trial yet. So today, current today, I read a news article about this from 5 days ago. His pretrial hearing is occurring this week, right now. And his actual trial is supposed to happen early next year, supposedly, which blows my mind how this man killed his brother's entire family in 2018. And here we are, 6 years later, almost 7, still hasn't gone to trial yet. But there's at least one reason why, and it has to do with the DNA. So the DNA from the jeans and gloves found in Paul's basement matched mixtures of his and his 8-year-old niece Sophia's DNA. But this DNA, this was determined using something called STR Mix software. It's a probabilistic genotyping software. So Paul's lawyer is trying to get this DNA evidence excluded because he's arguing that the technology is generally not accepted as completely reliable in the scientific community. The STR Mix program indicated a very strong likelihood that both Sophia and Paul contributed to the DNA mixtures found on the jeans and the gloves. And of course, in this pretrial hearing, there are various experts on both sides. So Kristen Naughton, a DNA analyst from Bode Technology, is testifying about the validity of STR Mix program and how it's accurate, reliable, and suitable for this and other cases. Another forensic DNA analyst testified that it is reliable. The public defender's office is arguing that it has not been accepted in the scientific community. So that's, rather than repeating myself over and over, that's what's happening right now, this week. And we'll see. I don't know what's going to happen. Obviously, that was a stupid thing to say. Jesus. It's like I get to the end of telling a story and I don't know what to say. So I just say the first ridiculous thing that pops into my head. I don't know what's going to happen. No kidding. Also, it's worth noting that Vlasis Karadis is Jennifer's father, the children's grandfather, filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Paul for not only taking money from the family in the months leading up to the murders, and also that his negligence and recklessness led to their deaths. He's also cites in there that Sophia endured great suffering, et cetera, et cetera. So he's seeking unspecified damages through the wrongful death lawsuit, which I don't know enough about it to comment on it. I don't know if is that something that's worth doing? I don't know. I know that we have several people who work in the legal system who listen. I'm not sure what would be, I mean, aside from looking for money, I suppose, what would be the point of filing a wrongful death lawsuit against him when he's already going to be going to trial for murder, among other things? I don't know. I guess if your whole, your daughter, her husband, and your 2 grandchildren are all murdered, perhaps that is the best way for you to deal with it. I don't know, but yeah, this is not a happy Thanksgiving story. I'm gonna look and see if there's anything new as of today. Nope. Looks like 10 hours ago. Still all in the pretrial hearing. In order to rule the DNA evidence admissible, Superior Court Judge Mark C. Lemieux must find the new computer software program known as STR Mix yields reliable results and that the method it utilizes to calculate them is generally accepted in the scientific community. Ooh. Oh, this gets into a whole thing. Well, there's no decision yet. So I'm going to leave it at that because I actually found that the Todd Kohlhepp story that I did last week, there's more information that I found that came out about Kayla Brown and just the whole situation. So I want to do one follow-up episode where I kind of catch up on some of these cases that have either did not have a conclusion yet or more information has come out. So we'll do that. Maybe we'll do an episode 85 and 86 catch up. And I will share all the latest information from both of those. So this one is, I mean, there's no official conclusion. Paul has not even gone to trial yet, but I feel quite confident that he did do this. And I cannot, I mean, I don't want to just continue to say very obvious, annoying statements, but money really fucking makes people do crazy things. I mean, but go get a loan, dude. It just blows my mind. I think that, actually, I take that back. Money does inspire people to do crazy things, but you have to be a bit crazy to have the capability to do that in the first place, to murder your sibling and their entire family. So I hope that he is found guilty of everything and spends the rest of his life in jail. But that is to be determined. So I will keep you guys posted on that. I feel like I stumbled through that one a little bit, which is a bummer because it's good is, a weird word to use, but a good story. And I have a non-Thanksgiving story that does take place in the Southwest that I'm going to wrap up today and hopefully share tomorrow because it is a fucking crazy one. I will say that. And I hope you guys are having a good week, having a good Tuesday. I'd love to hear what everyone's doing for Thanksgiving. So continue to send me messages, emails, text messages, voicemails, all the things. Leave us a review on Apple, and have a wonderful week. And a reminder that if today is a shitty day for you, first of all, I'm sorry. And tomorrow might be better. I'm not going to say tomorrow is going to be better because that feels annoying to me when people are like so overly positive about stuff, but tomorrow might be better. So hang in there. And I love you guys. Okay.